So guys, it looks like the Cardones, are in some serious legal hot water. Elena Cardone, the wife of Grant Cardone, was just sued for $100 million in a defamation lawsuit. Now, guys, for those of you who've been following the channel for a while, I did a video a couple months ago on Grant Cardone. I talked about his lawsuit. Grant sued the former CEO of T-Mobile, John Legere. He sued him for $100 million for defamation. Now, guys, I don't really believe in karma, but it is interesting. Grant, in my opinion, unjustly sues John Legere for $100 million for defamation. And then a few months later, Grant's wife, Elena, is sued for defamation for, you guessed it, $100 million. I find that to be quite interesting. Maybe karma is real, guys. I don't know. You can make up your own mind on that. But there's actual two lawsuits we're going to take a look at. There's the defamation lawsuit for $100 million. There's also another lawsuit against one of Grant's companies. So both the Cardones, Grant and Elena, are in some serious legal hot water. Even if they win the cases, it's going to cost them a buttload of money in lawyer fees. So I'm sure Grant's not too happy right now. I'm sure he's in his mansion crying. You know how Grant gets. You know how he gets, guys. I'm sure he's not doing too well right now. That's just a joke, obviously. Grant likes to sue people, so got to make that clear. Just a joke, Grant. But let's go ahead and take a look at these two lawsuits. I'll break them down as to who's suing him, all that fun stuff. Now, initially, I was sent this article from PRN News, and it says, renowned human biologist and longevity expert Gary Brecka files $100 million defamation claim against Elena Cardone and lawsuit against Cardone Ventures in response to questionable business practices. Now, the human biologist longevity expert, Gary Brecka, if you don't know who this guy is, he's been kind of like making the rounds on YouTube. I've been seeing him in a lot of videos recently. He was recently on the JRE podcast with Joe Rogan. He's done a lot of those podcasts talking about different genetic tests that he's offering through his companies and whatnot. And what's interesting, in a lot of the older videos, you saw him wearing 10X Health on all of the clothing that he was wearing in some of those videos. He's no longer a part of that company. We'll get into why that is later. That is a company associated with Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone has all the different 10X companies. He has a bunch of them. So the health systems was a partnership between Gary Brecka and Grant Cardone. That fell apart. Again, we'll get into that. But another thing that Gary Brecka has been kind of famous for is Dana White, the UFC CEO, talked about how Gary Brecka saved his life through genetic testing and getting him on different diets and supplements. Apparently, he alleged that Gary Brecka did this DNA test that said, he probably only has about 10 years left to live. And now, because of the changes he's made, he's lost a bunch of weight. He's doing a lot healthier. So Dana White says that Gary Brecka, the guy who we're going to be talking about, actually saved his life. Gary Brecka, wife Sage Workinger, and respective entities IJS and TPH, today filed significant lawsuits related to their partnership with Cardone Ventures LLC. The first complaint is a $100 million defamation lawsuit filed by Brecka and Workinger against Elena Cardone, wife of Grant Cardone, who co-founded 10X Health with Brecka and Workinger. It details the process by which Mrs. Cardone launched an alleged intentional smear campaign designed to damage Brecka's reputation, including making false incendiary social media posts and nefarious public statements. That sounds juicy, guys. I definitely want to break that down and see what's going on here. But it says, the second complaint names Cardone Ventures LLC, a consulting firm claiming to help founders scale their businesses, and its CEO Brandon Dawson as defendants. The complaint details predatory efforts by Dawson and Cardone Ventures to take over 10X Health and edge out Brecka and Workinger through nefarious means and breaches of contractual agreements. So all of that, guys, sounds really interesting. I went ahead and pulled up the actual case file right here. We'll go ahead and break it down. It's many pages long. Obviously, with legal documents, it's not all of it is going to be super interesting. So I'm just going to give you the cliff notes of what actually happened. If you want to take a look at the full document yourself, I'll try and link that below so you can take a look at that. But here we have the complaint right here. Plaintiffs Gary Brecka and Cecily Sage Workinger, I think that's how you say it, by and through undersigned counsel, sue defendant Elena Cardone, Mrs. Cardone, and allege as follows. So introduction. Gary Brecka and Sage Workinger co-founded and for a time enjoyed a fruitful relationship with 10X Health Ventures LLC, 10X Health. As Brecka's star rose, 10X Health sought to collar the driving force of its brand and the relationship soured, culminating in 10X Health's termination of Brecka and Workinger. In the wake of his termination, Brecka publicly framed the separation as an amicable parting of ways to assuage 10X Health clients and patients and to preserve what little goodwill remained between him and the company he and his wife Workinger co-founded. This evidently struck a nerve with Elena Cardone, the wife of 10X Health co-founder and majority shareholder Grant Cardone. Mrs. Cardone decided to stoke the flames. She took to social media to besmirch Brecka and Workinger. First, she posted an old video of Brecka coaching Sean P. Diddy Combs through breathwork, trying to impunge Brecka as a result of Combs recently being shoved into the national spotlight following an incendiary indictment for an alleged criminal conspiracy involving, among myriad of other nefarious things, sex trafficking, with the express purpose of communicating the false message that Brecka is toxic and worse, a deviant criminal. She then privately threatened Sage and without provocation left a vicious comment on Brecka's Instagram account replete with material and disparaging falsehoods. Now Brecka and Workinger sue Mrs. Cardone for defamation. Alright guys, so the next few pages just kind of outlines the whole story of how they founded 10X Health and how we got to this point. I'm not going to read the entire thing because a lot of it is quite boring, but we'll get to the actual parts, the juicy parts. Then in April of 2024, 10X Health ambushed Brecka and Workinger with an attempted corporate restructuring, pressuring them to sign unfavorable conversion documents on an unreasonably tight time frame. Brecka and Workinger refused. Subsequently, negotiations to resolve the parties' disputes proved fruitless. Mr. Cardone propositioned Brecka to make an offer to buy out Cardone Ventures' interest in 10X Health, but after spending months formulating a term sheet to acquire Cardone Ventures' interest for cash, Cardone Ventures summarily rejected the offer. Brecka decided to resign and on the morning of November 5th, 2024, notified the president of 10X Health, but 10X Health caught wind of Brecka's plan and raced to terminate him and Workinger first in order to control the narrative and tarnish their reputations. Later that day, on November 5th, 2024, 10X Health sent Brecka and Workinger termination notices, terminating Workinger and purporting to terminate Brecka for cause. On November 25th, 2024, Brecka made a joint post with Workinger on his Instagram account, reflecting on his and Workinger's journey from starting Streamline to the present, informing the public of his departure from 10X Health, and expressing his thanks and gratitude to 10X Health and his fans. Brecka also took the opportunity to highlight his support for the employees and caregivers of 10X Health. Finally, he emphasized that the patients and clients of 10X Health remain in excellent hands, referring to the team at 10X Health as the most compassionate caregivers in the space. In response to the heartfelt Brecka post, Mrs. Cardone posted to her over 688,000 followers on her Instagram account an old video clip of Brecka and Sean Combs, a prior 10X Health client, with the caption, "Boy, bye." As background, it's September of 2024. We don't need to go over that. It talks about how P. Diddy was, raided. All the arrests evolved around P. Diddy. So it goes, Mrs. Cardone published the Instagram post to create the false impression that, among other things, Brecka and Mr. Combs had more than a professional relationship and that Brecka was in some way involved with or participated in the conduct underlying Mr. Combs' recent criminal racketeering charges. Brecka's relationship with Mr. Combs was limited to interactions with Mr. Combs as a client of 10X Health. Mrs. Cardone knew that her intended meaning for the Instagram post was false and or in reckless disregard of the truth. Mrs. Cardone posted the Instagram post with the express purpose of injuring Brecka's post-10X Health career and or to subject him to hatred, distrust, ridicule, contempt, or disgrace. Workinger commented on the Instagram post stating that it was a classless jab to post this and make people question us. She clarified that she and Brecka had no connections to Mr. Combs beyond helping him for a short time on his health journey with 10X Health. Rather than deny the malicious purpose of the Instagram post, Mrs. Cardone cheekily replied to Workinger, "No comment." If the Instagram post was not explicit enough in its meaning, one commenter explained the thought process Mrs. Cardone intended to evoke. Gary left the 10X organization. Looks like some connections with Diddy? Other comments who understood the false and disparaging messages behind Mrs. Cardone posts responded calling it tone-deaf, unbecoming, and classless. Mrs. Cardone proceeded to delete the Instagram post. Later that day, Workinger privately reached out to Mrs. Cardone regarding the Instagram post and was met with open hostility, further cementing its malicious purpose. So this is Workinger saying, "Why would you post that, Elena? That was not kind and really disrespectful. I see you took it down because people didn't agree with your posting it. It was trashy." And then Elena responds with the smiley face with the hearts. And she says, "I'll put it back if you want." And Workinger says, "Go for it. Let's see what other people think of your petty post." Ooh, so it's getting spicy out here, guys. So it says, Brecka and Workinger believe that the Instagram post was the end of the matter, but Mrs. Cardone had other ideas to take the fight to Brecka. Brecka's Instagram account had over 2.2 million followers. Social media is the lifeblood of Brecka's business. Elena Cardone took it upon herself to reply to Brecka's post and to Brecka and Workinger's millions of cumulative followers. I'm not going to read that entire post. Basically, she talks about how Grant Cardone, her husband, was the one who created and really brought 10X to where it was. And Gary is just like, he was feeding off the success of Grant Cardone, and he should be ashamed of himself. He should look up to Grant Cardone because he's such an amazing individual. We all know how great Grant Cardone is, guys. So Elena was just telling everyone, Grant Cardone was the one who saved your failing strip mall vitamin supplement business, she actually says during the post. Grant Cardone's the one you should be looking up to. So those two posts are the basis for the claim for the $100 million in defamation that Gary Brecka and Sage Workinger, his wife, are bringing against Elena Cardone. I don't know if they're actually going to win the case. I really don't know at all. Maybe some lawyer can chime in on this. I know there's a bunch of lawyers on YouTube, so I'm sure someone will chime in at some point. But that is the initial $100 million complaint against Elena Cardone for the defamation. But there's also the case that we'll briefly take a look at where Gary Brecka and Workinger are suing 10X Health Ventures and specifically Brandon Dawson. So let's take a look at that. It says, Brecka has become a figurehead of the health and wellness space based on his client-focused approach, putting the health outlooks of clients first. As Brecka rose to prominence in the industry, he catapulted the business of 10X Health that he and his wife and business partner Workinger co-founded. Cardone Ventures and Dawson came along for the ride, but Cardone Ventures and Dawson were not satisfied with the financial windfall they were receiving. Greed took hold of them, causing them to focus solely on the bottom line at the expense of 10X Health clients and patients. While 10X Health ranked in unprecedented profits due to the efforts of Brecka and Workinger, Cardone Ventures and Dawson engaged in blatant self-dealing acts as if Brecka and Workinger were disposable assets over which Cardone Ventures and Dawson had unfettered control. Accordingly, when 10X Health received expansion and growth opportunities, Brecka and Workinger were kept in the dark, or worse, their interests were intentionally undermined. Ultimately, one of the proverbial final straws occurred when Brecka and Workinger refused to compromise their principles and ethics to promote new genetic testing and supplement products that are destroying 10X Health business and cause mass confusion in the market. Yet another self-dealing ploy by Cardone Ventures and Dawson to siphon money for themselves. Intent on controlling the narrative and tarnishing Brecka and Workinger's good names, Cardone Ventures and Dawson, acting through their positions of power at 10X Health, terminated Brecka and Workinger's employment from 10X Health, but lied to employees, officers, and shareholders about this termination to paint the narrative that this was due to Brecka being too busy for the business, a patent lie. Now, Brecka and Workinger and their respective entities, IJS and TPH, bring suit for claims arising from various agreements and the duties and obligations that arise therefore. Now, this specific lawsuit, I looked at it, it doesn't name a specific amount of money they're asking for, so that'll probably come out at a later date. But it is interesting that Grant and Elena, they're both in hot water because of this company is associated with him, and Elena obviously was sued for $100 million. Now, I actually reached out to both Gary Brecka and Sage Workinger. I asked them if they wanted to do an interview, and I actually heard back from Sage Workinger, who said they might be interested in doing that. So at a later date, I may have an interview going into more detail, talking about this lawsuit that they are going against Elena Cardone, as well as the 10X Ventures company as well. Who knows? That may happen at a later date. I don't really know at this point. But it is really interesting. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention that Elena Cardone now being sued for $100 million after Grant a few months ago sued someone else for defamation for $100 million. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this lawsuit? Do you think Gary and Sage will win against Elena and the company? Let me know what you think below.